Hey guys, you are watching and listening to the latest edition of K100 Sports. Let's begin with recapping the Manchester Derby. Now, I covered the Manchester Derby on the latest episode of Bet MUFC. Obviously, this was a massive win. It's always massive to get a win over a Manchester City side who have primarily dominated English football for the last decade. So, obviously, this is not a good moment, not a good time for Manchester United. Anytime we can get one over City, the odds speak for themselves. The fact that the odds always indicate that Manchester United are a massive underdog tells you what a big thing it is. Any underdog victory is huge for the underdog and it catches people off guard. In this instance, Manchester City came into the game with one win in their last 10. So already we were seeing Manchester United priced up as not as much of a significant underdog as they would usually be. Man City being a 1-2 minus 200 favourite is normally a price that you would see on Manchester City if they were travelling to Old Trafford. In fact, if we go to the FA Cup final, I recall they were shorter than that just to win on the money line. They were a minus 300 favourite to win the FA Cup final on the money line and were minus 600, minus 700 to ultimately lift the trophy. So strong favourites, not in a good run of form. They were vulnerable and Manchester United had a great chance of winning that game, and we did. When you were looking prior to the game at how Manchester United would actually hurt Manchester City, you would have thought it would have come through pace in transition. It would have come from winning the midfield battles and setting up counter-attacks in transition. Now, we certainly have the players there to win the midfield battles. Whether we start Casemiro, whether we start Agate, whether we start Kobe Mainu, whether we drop in Bruno Fernandes, whether we even bring in the likes of a Christian Eriksen or a Mason Mount, we have the bodies there in midfield. We have more squad depth. While these aren't necessarily better players than a Kevin De Bruyne or a Gundogan or even a Kovacic, we do have the numbers there. We don't have any injuries in midfield. We can put players out there who could empty the tank for 60 minutes and then we can ultimately change them. Now, the weapons that we needed to hurt them would have come through a Garnacho or a Rashford who would have been able to attack this team with pace. So for Amorim to make the statement that he did, to say that he was done with Rashford and Garnacho's bullshit, was a big one. Now, I have been kinder with my words to Garnacho than I have been towards Marcus Rashford. That's not to say that I'm happy with Garnacho. He's not been in good form since Amorim took over. He was better under Ruud van Nistelrooy, so it hasn't been a bad season at all with when it comes to Garnacho. If you look at his assists and his goals and his numbers in general, his contributions, he hasn't been bad. So it has really only been an Amorim thing, and I did identify this as soon as Amorim took over. I was concerned about the fact that he likes to play four midfielders, which are 2 10s and 2 6s. There are no 8s, there are no wingers. The width is expected to come from the wing backs, which Garnacho isn't and Rashford isn't. And Ahmad wasn't, but Ahmad is now, or at least he's capable of playing in that position. Although in this particular game, he played as one of the 10s and was still able to do damage going out wide. So he showed how to play this position. He taught Rashford and Garnacho a lesson when he came in with a man-of-the-match performance and was able to carry out his defensive duties, was available in the middle of the park as a 10 and was able to get wide when we needed him to get wide, when he was able to get inside or outside of the wing-backs. Ahmad was able to do everything and delivered a 9 out of 10 performance, and that's what he usually does. He has made this position his own, and it's fair to say that he's probably one of the first names down on the team sheet. So how can we now remove Ahmad from one of those 10 positions when we see that he's capable of playing it? The only reason that would be is because we are lacking in the wing-back department at the moment, and Ahmad has shown that he's very capable of playing there, even though it means moving Dalot over to the left and possibly playing Mazraoui as one of the 3 centre-backs continually. So I was happy with the performance of a lot of players, but in particular Ahmad, which makes it even more difficult for Garnacho to get back into the team. But I do believe Garnacho should get back into the team. His problems stem from the fact that he's young. He's obviously doing what young people want to do. Getting your girlfriend pregnant at the age that he did was a mistake. He's obviously been caught doing something, and now they're not together, and he only sees his child on Fridays, and that's not a great position for Garnacho to be in. His attitude in general is poor. He's one of the first ones out of training, where if you are one of these Cristiano Ronaldo disciples, like Diego Dallo openly is, Erling Haaland is, and he plays for City, and Garnacho's a big Cristiano Ronaldo guy, yet isn't acting like Cristiano Ronaldo did at Cristiano Ronaldo's age. So I'm expecting more from Garnacho. I'm expecting him to work hard at training, stay later at training. I'm not expecting him to prioritise getting his haircuts, being out late round hail, dressing like a moron in general, and doing stupid things on social media. I don't want this from a Manchester United player. I certainly don't want this around. I don't want this from a Man United player that we want to build a team around. So Garnacho needs to sort it out, but I'm willing to give him a chance. I have no chances left for Marcus Rashford. You guys probably heard the rant over on BetMUFC on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. But to elaborate on it a little bit more, football supporters will always be more forgiving of a player who's working hard. It's not always about ability. Now, if you don't have the ability, ultimately you need to be shown the door. We had hard working players before. McFred, that's Fred, and McTominay. Both of them are no longer playing at Manchester United. Both of them rightfully were identified as players who were not good enough to play for Manchester United if Manchester United want to go beyond the top four and challenge for the league. Now, we're not even in the top four at the moment, so it sounds like quite an ambitious thing to say, but I don't think the leap is that far off. To see what's happened to Man City, to see how they have declined so very quickly with the loss of one player, which is being identified as the key reason, to see how Arne Slot has come in and has organised Liverpool, to see how heavily Chelsea were criticised for their transfer policy, and now to see them genuinely challenging for the league, whether you believe it or not, they are. And to see how Arsenal didn't quite get it right on the last window, and how they haven't made any progress this season, and how they're suffering, it shows you that it only really takes one or two good or one or two bad decisions for things to be significantly influenced. And that is the main difference between a top six and a top four, and then a top four to a title contender. So I don't think it's going to take that long if we get it right from this point. And one of the things that we need to do is get rid of Marcus Rashford, because the point I was trying to make is that players will always, supporters will always accept a player who's trying his best. They will not accept a player who isn't trying his best and who has the ability to be so much better, which Rashford does, and then we continually see underperformances. There's no reason for a footballer not to run, unless we find something out about some sort of medical issue and this guy is a severe asthmatic. Marcus Rashford should be running around that football pitch continuously, playing for the badge, especially as a senior player. I hate this shit where Marcus Rashford is continuously classed as a younger player, as someone who has potential. There's no more getting by on potential, and there's no more saving you with your PR jobs. We don't care if you're feeding the kids, because we know you're not really feeding the kids, and we don't care if you are anyway. I'm not going to support my players or pick and choose my favourite players or forgive players off the back of what they do off the pitch. I don't care about your charity work. I don't care whether it's really being done or not. I don't care about your PR team and what you're trying to spin. At the end of the day, your PR team couldn't get away from spinning you away from the fact that you went to an NBA game during the season. Now, you weren't selected for England, which should have been embarrassing enough. Instead, you double embarrassed yourself by looking like some moronic rapper at the NBA game that you went to the same week that Ruben Amorim took over at the club. Did you think he didn't see that? Did you think that wouldn't carry some weight? Do you think there's nothing to be said about the fact that Casemiro's minutes are significantly limited, and now Marcus Rashford isn't in the squad, and both of them were two of the players who didn't get picked for international duty and pissed off on holidays during that time? Amorim is seeing all and taking note of all. And he said, it's the way you eat, it's the way you dress, it's the way you interact with your teammates. And I'm very happy that we have this manager. And I'm even more happy that he was vindicated. Now, I didn't think when I saw that team line up that it was the right time to necessarily do it. And I was praying that he would be vindicated, because the biggest thing we could have hurt Man City with was pace and transition. But then I didn't really fully, or I somewhat underestimated the gem that we had in Ahmad and how dangerous he would actually be in that game. Now, many people have pointed at different games as being his coming out, but I don't think there's going to be a bigger coming out for Ahmad than what he done. Even the goal against Liverpool where we won the quarter-final, I think this was it for Ahmad, where he becomes a permanent name in my first 11 and the first 11 of many supporters, and most importantly, Ruben Amorim. But I have no forgiveness whatsoever for Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford needs to leave the club. If you look at a player like a Darwin Núñez, for example, Liverpool fans are very forgiving of Darwin Núñez. He has horrible numbers. He has horrible chance conversion. When you look at the chances that are offered up to him and how badly he underperforms his XG, he shouldn't be a Liverpool player. You would look at that signing and say that it's a mistake, and he hasn't reached his potential. But Liverpool supporters won't have any of it, and Liverpool supporters are still behind him, and Liverpool supporters are not screaming out for Darwin Núñez to leave this club. And there isn't that toxicity around Darwin Núñez. Yes, it's easier when you're top of the league, but the fact that Darwin Núñez continuously works his arse off, you can accuse him of a lot of things, but you cannot say that Darwin Núñez does not fight for the badge. He understands what it means to be a Liverpool player, and he so desperately wants to get better. I don't think Darwin Núñez cares if he's paid 10 grand a week or 100 grand a week or whatever he's paid. I haven't done the research on his wages for this particular part of the show. I can tell you what Rashford's paid, and it's ridiculous. But yeah, that's what supporters will accept across the board, across all clubs. And now it's come to the point where we no longer accept Marcus Rashford. We don't want to see Marcus Rashford get another chance. We don't care about his PR jobs. We've seen videos surface of him donating 420 meals to the kids and playing football with them. We don't care. I don't care. The ship has sailed. You now, it's not even a case of where we're turning around to you and saying, we don't care, you need to perform. I don't want to see you perform. I don't want to see you turn it round. I don't want to be tricked by a run of 4 or 5 games anymore. I just want to see you sold. Whoever is stupid enough to buy you, good luck to them. I hope you end up in the US or Saudi. I don't think you deserve to be playing European football. I don't think he deserves to be playing in the Champions League or playing for a top European club. But I don't care. Ultimately, I don't care. I don't want it to be my problem, the supporters' problem, Amorim's problem, Manchester United's problem, or the problem of the players around Marcus Rashford. He needs to leave. And it was definitely a positive step. Bruno Amorim was immediately vindicated in his decision. And we roll on to the game against Tottenham tonight, where Manchester United will be hoping to reach the the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup. Tonight is the quarter-final, of course. And there is a extensive preview of the game over on the latest episode of BetMUFC, where I also talk even more about Marcus Rashford. So be sure to check it out. We're going to close out this episode by talking about the state of the NFL. And when I say the state, I'm talking about the playoff situation, not the state of play and the ATS situation in general, because there's plenty of time to do that on other shows that I do. But for me, the playoff picture is quite cut and dry for the most part as we approach week 16. In the AFC side of things, it's just a case of can Kansas City hold on and win these 2 games and be the most undeserved number 1 seed of all time. So even though it looks very much like Josh Allen will be the MVP, Patrick Mahomes is going to lead his team into the playoffs. They're going to get that week to rest. Mahomes may need that week to rest because he may be carrying an injury. Now, he's trained this week fully. He's practiced fully. So it looks like he's going to play against the Texans. And the Texans, they are a team who are locked into the number 4. As for the number 3, I'm convinced that it will be the Ravens. Now, Obviously, we all know the underdog trends going into this weekend, where the underdog always covers in that game. But the Steelers are littered with injuries going into this game, and I believe that the Ravens are a very dangerous team in the AFC. They're peaking at the right time. Defensively, they're getting better. They've always been good against the run, but now they're looking like they're improving against the pass. And a lot of aspects in this team are peaking at the right time. They have the game to be dangerous in the playoffs. Lamar can beat you in the air, can beat you on his feet. And of course, let's not forget about Derrick Henry. So I think they're going to end up being the 3 seed, which is then going to make the Steelers the 5 seed. I think it's very difficult to see the Chargers not being the 6 seed, and then you're going to have Denver as the 7. Obviously, a lot of that will be determined by tonight's game between the Chargers and the Broncos. But I sound like an abused housewife when I say this, but the Bengals are still alive. The Broncos have a difficult finish, which includes playing against the Bengals next week. So if they lose this game and they lose against the Bengals, it does come down to the final weekend of the season. So it's not over. And I've been someone who has lost money on the Bengals. I'm about to lose more when my futures don't come to fruition. I have an over 8.5 win total in play during the season. This is going to be one of the teams where I suffer the consequences of choosing to die on that hill way too much. And I'm still on this show saying that there's a chance. I sound like Jim Carrey's character in Dumb and Dumber, Lloyd, where I'm saying, you're telling me there's a chance. I understand that. But there is a chance. There is a chance when you look at the schedule. Obviously, it's important for the Chargers to win tonight. If the Chargers can win tonight, the Bengals are alive. And we'll see what happens tonight, and we'll move on from there. So that's the AFC side of things. Moving over to the NFC side of things, this is where things look a little bit more complicated. Now, the Eagles or the Lions are going to be the number 1 or 2, but that's not as cut and dry as it was previously because of the defensive injuries that the Lions now have. And there's even an outside chance that Minnesota could be the number 2 seed if they win their matchup against the Lions. So the Lions' defensive injuries are bad. They are now going to be in a position where they need to outscore teams, but they are capable of doing that. Home advantage will be key for both of these two teams. If the playoffs run through either Philadelphia or Detroit, it's going to be very difficult to beat either of these teams, even with the injuries that the Lions have. The number 3 and 4 seed, that's yet to be determined because they don't even look like they have secured their divisions yet. Tampa are in a better position than the Rams are at the moment. But the Rams have made an incredible comeback, and their fate will probably be decided by their final game against the Seahawks. Whilst the playoffs start when the playoffs start, the playoffs for me will start in week 18 with that game between the Rams and the Seahawks if results go the way that I expect them to. Elsewhere, you obviously have the Vikings safe in the 5 position, and then the Packers and the Commanders are going to be in 6 or 7. So there isn't too much to decide there in terms of who gets into the playoffs, but it's just about the placings. 1 and 2 is still on the line. The order of 3 and 4 is yet to be determined. And in some ways, 2 and 5 is yet to be decided if the Lions' defensive injuries are as bad as many are saying that they are. So that concludes this edition of K100 Sports. I'll be back next week. I really will be. Even though it's Christmas, I am going to do the show. So until then, good luck with all your bets as always. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.